The Sentinel is known to be reliable, fearless, disciplined, consistent, courageous, motivated, and skillful.
So do what you feel passionate about. Take chances.
All these qualities start from the mind. Your mind can be your worst enemy or your most powerful weapon.
The world becomes your library to help you to become better at your craft.
Is this the dagger?
Learn how to achieve greatness and tap into the Sentinel mindset.
Good morning, everybody. Hope you're doing well today. Special guest as always. We got Taylor McCubbin from the Chimera Firearm Group.
Nice. You got it out there quick so you wouldn't forget how to pronounce it.
See that? Slower. The amazing thing about this is that why I really wanted to have you on the show is, first of all, what you do is very intriguing, but also the timing is perfect because our agency just acquired their firearms agency license. And, we were thinking for a very long time, Taylor, why are we going to do this? Like, why should we do this? I mean, I know a lot of...
your mom asked you. Your mom said.
A lot of entities do it just so they can, have it as a service. But we wanted to do something very unique, very special if we got the opportunity to do this. And that was to create almost a special constable division, okay? And for us, everything that we do is by design. And everything that we do is out of the box. And then I was going through your website, and I've known of you for some time right now. Yeah, but a lot of the stuff that you're doing is kind of, I would say, outside of the box stuff as well. It's not your regular thing. You know what I mean? So I want you to do justice of what Chimera Group does, okay? And again, one of the biggest things that drew my attention is the VR technology that is utilized in training. And this stuff is absolutely incredible. Later on in the show today, we are going to actually have a live demonstration. I know you brought some of your VR headsets here. And we're going to be doing it with our DECAs. Our DECAs are our close protection elite team. We always like to throw and test things on them. They are the hamsters right now.
Yeah, they have no idea what to expect.
They have no idea what to expect today.
Yeah, they're asking like, what's our attire? What do we have to prepare for? Just show up.
Exactly.
Okay? Yeah.
So Taylor, tell us a little bit about Chimera Group.
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you so much for having me today. I'm really honored and excited to be here. I've looked forward to connecting with you guys for a long time.
Nice.
And I'm a fan of the podcast, so this is really exciting for me.
Thank you.
And what Chimera really stands for is providing training and being accessible with training for those who need it, where they need it. So this all kind of started based on me seeing a lack of firearms training being accessible to police officers primarily. And then I saw the same kind of thing happen for armed security, where there really isn't a great institution set up to support those people in what they need to do. So we provide everything in the training side of the house, from the firearm side to defensive tactics to some of the medical stuff. And then I saw a gap in simulation while I was developing this training program, because I used to work for a company called Mega Training Systems, who provides these screen simulators to the military. And so I said, I'm going to buy one of these systems. I'm going to travel around with it and offer it for training. And that worked to a point. But there's always a limit to technology, right? And I found the limit very quickly for scenario-based training and for immersive, stressful kind of encounters. It didn't really elicit those responses. So I started a separate company, Chimera XR. And all we do at Chimera XR is build simulators that help first responders and security train where they need to, when they need to, using virtual reality.
Okay, and you're actually doing this right now. You've had some test audiences around the world right now. Tell us a little bit about this, because I believe, if I'm correct, in is New York and Australia?
So we have 5 federal agencies currently as clients.
Okay.
Some are still awaiting their first order, and some have already used their systems. So the RCMP are our oldest client.
Okay.
They've used systems since March of this year, and we launched in February, so they were like really early in. And then we have some other clients in the States, like the U.S. Marshals, the Customs and Border Protection. There's a college, like a police college in the States, that uses our system. And the UK military is just about to start using our system. So we're
exciting.
Early stages. Yeah, we're early stages. We're really excited because this has been years in the making, right? We've been prototyping. Only this year did I feel that it was the right time to release the products. But I've been prototyping in various iterations since 2017.
Now, what's your relationship with training? I mean, most people don't set up a training entity unless they value training. I mean, otherwise you're just a shrewd businessman. Okay, right? But like when you say, I always find it fascinating. For me, the word training is a very endearing word. It means a lot. I have some really good and bad memories associated with it, but it makes me better. Some people just have never really trained. So I'm just curious, why did you choose this path, and kind of what's your relationship with training?
Yeah, for sure. So the military is where I come from. I've been in the reserves until just very recently, since 2006. And we train all the time in the military, and it's kind of the standard. Like, if you're not on operation, you're training. And I'd say we have a good standard of training in the military. However, while I was full-time as an instructor in Trenton, my last full-time job was teaching firearms. I saw some gaps that existed, and it made me really want to dive deeper into why those gaps exist and what are the appropriate kind of ways to close those gaps. And so to me, training is always an opportunity to build someone to that next stage, but it really depends on what the context and intent of that training is. And I think sometimes that gets lost when, we're trying to train for a high stress scenario, but we don't really have a means to recreate that. Mm-hmm. So I designed Chimera as the firearms training company, as like a logo and a kind of a symbology around the Chimera, around this three-headed beast, on purpose. I was really struggling to find the right name and the right way to kind of like embody what I was thinking, which is that training is not just physical, it's not just mental, and it's not just emotional. It's some combination of the three at various times.
I like that.
And there's very few training programs that really attack each one. So the military, for example, we do a great job of, well, I can't speak on behalf of the military, of course, but the military in general, I believe, does a great job of physical training. So whether that's physical fitness, whether that's drill, whether that's people moving in the right places at the right time, we're very good at that. We do the mental side of training pretty well too, sometimes decision making or strategy, but sometimes we miss the emotional side of training, which is resiliency or stress management, or being able to, lower our arousal and our stress during those kinds of high risk scenarios.
Which is a huge market right now. I mean, any Olympic team, high level sports team, you're seeing it. There's these mental Miyagis, so to say, that are guiding, and because
I think that's the real growth area, right? And that's what I think training needs to become. Or when I see other instructors, when I go and take classes myself, I'm looking to see kind of, where do they focus? Do they have their focus mostly in the physical realm? Or are we just doing drills for the sake of doing drills? Endless, in the firearms world, we go like endless up drills where you're just doing the same stuff. Right. And you're like, what's the context and intent of this? What is this leading towards?
Adrenaline.
Yeah. Right. Like, what's
to blow some steam?
What are we trying to get out of it?
Yes.
And does it truly attack all three elements in some way? Or if it doesn't, then why? Right. So if there's an intent to that, right, we're only focusing on isolating on one thing, then great. But by the end of a comprehensive training program, I believe it has to address each of those three areas.
Yeah, we're kind of similar in nature. For us, I mean, there was no book. We had a problem, and I love, you said twice now that you spotted gaps. So kind of the secret to being an asset in any circle is, if you see gaps, fill them in.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Right? Try to bring solutions. I mean, look, everyone knows a lot of people that just talk about problems all the time. And I had a good buddy once who said, he's like, don't waste your time talking the problem, because there's nothing empowering. If you just say, man, the weather sucks. Like, he goes, speak the solution, because the solution also acknowledges there was a problem. Right. So you say, like, oh man, make sure that you have your umbrella and you got your boots, because and so for us, when we were doing some training, we stumbled on it. We had to prepare a huge team for the red carpets of TIFF, and kind of what we were doing in a lot of these parties, and we started putting our heads together, and guess what came up? Scenarios, right? And it was just like, okay, and we weren't following any strategic model. It was just kind of putting our heads together, filling the gaps, and we've seen it paid huge dividends by just putting people in an environment that is somewhat similar to what they expect. Most of recent, when we were doing healthcare, our team, we trained guys for about 500 hours to prepare to go into healthcare. That's a kind of its own little anomaly in its own story. We probably will never have that time. What we found out though is that everyone was over prepared, which is not a bad thing. They actually said they were over prepared to walk into an environment that they've never been before. So we've been bit by the bug. We love training. We know what it's about, but we've seen that, like, man, just to see in the faces of the people that go through it,
You're transformed.
yeah, and how appreciative they are of it, because it's not like it's everywhere, you know. And you know, so we're excited today about just for some of these guys to really kind of put, you know, your system on and kind of explore like what could we really do with it full throttle, you know. Yeah.
Now the thing is, the VR stuff. In our earlier conversations that we had when we first started to get to know what you do, I remember you said that you could literally, the technology is there where you could create environments to pretty much suit any need.
What was the word? Modified reality?
So there's 3 kind of modalities. There's virtual reality, augmented reality, and mixed reality.
Mixed.
Right.
That's what it was.
Yeah.
Mixed. Yes.
And they each have advantages to different kinds of training and to different intents. So depending on what your goals are, each can provide some really incredible benefits. Yeah.
So we've typically in the past, when we do scenario-based training, if we don't use one of our people, we usually bring in actors, and we utilize them. We did a lot of that through the 500-hour training that Mike was talking about, but it seems like actors could be replaced right now through the VR world, because you could create simulations of like encounters of people maybe having mental health issues, dealing with a volatile situation, whatever. You can put all that in VR.
Now, to the doubters, though, like, you know, how real is it?
How real is it?
Come on, Taylor. Like, come on.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You know?
So you're never, like, in none of my videos or podcasts have I ever claimed that this is going to be enough to convince people of how real it is, just me telling them or seeing the video. They have to experience it truly to understand that we've had some of the most professional people from ETF to, just name the unit, in our headset using our system. And the way I know that they know it's real, or that their brain believes it's real, is when they do things that they wouldn't intend to if they knew it was virtual reality. So for example, they're sitting in the car in virtual reality and they draw, they shoot, they're about to get out of the car and they step over the lip of that car as if they were stepping out of it, rather than just moving their foot through the car because it's not there.
Yes.
Or they go to lean against the car and they fall over.
Right.
And we've seen like very high level professionals who have deployments or, real world shootings, and they fall over in front of their peers, their boss, me, like, you know what I mean? That's not faked. You can't fake that. So,
so the brain embraces it, right?
Yeah, it doesn't know anything else. When you put a VR headset on because you only see what the screen shows you and everything else is black, that's psychologically, that does enough where you really can't perceive anything else in that moment. So that's most of what the brain kind of believes. So it's getting closer to that 100% immersion where you literally completely forget that there is anything outside of the headset.
Well, okay, so there's some parallels to positive thinking. I was reading something in a book where if you just decide to look at things in a positive outlook, you will see them, right? And you kind of, you fool your brain that, if the glass is half full for things. Little side note, go on.
Yeah. So I'm a law enforcement agency or an agency, but let's just say law enforcement agency. And
a secret one.
And I want to
League of Shadows.
I
represent the League of Shadows.
I want to utilize this service.
Yeah.
Okay. What does training like this embody and experience? I mean, if you can maybe break it in 2 sections, maybe, for example, simulation scenario based, and also could you do firearms training with VR?
Yes, you can. So there's drills and scenarios, and there are 2 distinct things. A while ago, I thought they were kind of the same, but they're very distinct. So drills are designed to attack a skill and help someone build up that skill. Mm-hmm. A scenario is designed to evaluate those skills under some kind of context. So, under the context of TIF, or under the context of an armed robbery, or,
hostage scenario
in a specific kind of environment. And then you ideally evaluate something specific in that scenario, and target 1 or 2 things, and not try to target everything at the same time, but say, I'm looking for the judgment in this. I'm looking for the ability to maintain fundamentals of accuracy, let's say, or fundamentals of marksmanship in this, while under those conditions. So I think that virtual reality has a great place in the drill side of the house, and it has some place in the scenario side of the house. And I think to expand deeper into the scenario side, we need mixed reality as well. And so there's a kind of...
Can you say what mixed reality is again?
Yeah, for sure. So virtual reality being put on a headset and all you see is the headset. Mixed reality is you see your environment, the real world, and then an overlay of basically a hologram of whatever we want you to see in the simulation on top of the real world. So a good example would be, imagine you're sitting in an office in an open area like this one. you're sitting in the chair, and when you look in the headset, you see the office, but you also see that you're sitting in a car. But you can still see all your colleagues, you can see all the office, but you're sitting in a car. So you can overlay things in the environment, and that's augmented reality. It becomes mixed reality when we can start to interact with the environment. So I see. I can shoot through the car, and that has an effect on the windshield, even though it's still a simulation, and I can still see everything around the office, the people. Ooh. So now you can start to interact with actors, for example, while still having a much more immersive experience, because very, very often with scenario training, as someone who's run scenario training for our own purposes, is you see there is a scenarioism that happens, right, where the actor has to wear some kind of protection, and everyone knows it's canned to a degree, and the environment is kind of softened in some ways to make sure that it's safe. Like there has to be those levels of safety, right?
Right. We've all wrestled with our siblings, and there's pillows everywhere.
Yeah. And so there's got to be some detractor to the realism in order to increase the safety. So I think that's where simulation really plays a big role, right? Is when you want to increase the realism and maintain a high level of safety, simulation is the way to go.
Okay. Interesting. Now, is the learning curve expedited for people to, because you learn from experience. The best thing about this type of system is you could do it over and over and over. Like, how many times are you going to have an active attacker scenario in real life? Hopefully never.
Right.
But in theory, you could train it 1,000 times in 1,000 days.
Yeah.
Okay? Now, does that really translate into real world hard skills to be able to, because there is an argument that, like, oh man, that's just there. That's not the real world.
Right.
What would you say to that?
Yeah, for sure. So I would say that don't take my word for it. Kind of back to the earlier question, our process is this. You, as an agency, as a group, we offer this product to law enforcement, military, security, or educational institutions. It's not available to individuals. And so the agency lets us know they want to try the system out. They want a demonstration. If we can do it in person, we do it in person. But one of our strengths is that because the system is so easy to use, and you guys saw me roll in with it, it's not a lot of equipment.
Yeah, not at all.
And what we do is we just mail it. I just ship it to the agency. We set up an hour-long conversation on Zoom where I explain how to use the basic features, and then they test it. And
wow, without even you there as an operator.
Right.
Okay, that's a simplified system. That's pretty amazing.
It's got to be easy to use.
Right. Yeah.
And so if you can't, and a quarter of agencies don't even need us to call them to tell them how it works. They just figured it out on their own, right? Because it is really easy to use.
Okay. Do you have some type of online forum that they can all, in theory, if you had 1,000 sets out there, that they could all kind of come into your world one day? Like,
yeah, so we're building, everyone talks about the metaverse right now, right? We are building our own community for sure. An
That's
online,
a good safe word. That's a good safe word.
Yeah, an online community, a marketplace, if you will, of ideas. And I think that's one of the most exciting things about our project is that, there are other people doing virtual reality or simulation with firearms or with professionals in the armed community, but very little interaction seems to happen between different organizations when every organization has learned a lesson the hard way.
Okay.
Right?
Exactly.
Every organization has lost people.
Very good point.
Had, events that went wrong that turned into a debrief somewhere, some down the line. And we've all been to conferences where those debriefs happen and you get to hear what went wrong and why, but very little really practically happens from that. So you're kind of talking about problems and solutions, right?
Yeah.
So we are presenting the problem at the conference, and we presented what we did wrong and what we would do differently next time, but no one ever gets to try that until it happens.
Right.
So we see a future, we've tried this a couple times, where we take groups from different parts of the world. So we had a couple events where we had someone in Germany, someone in a couple in the States, and myself in Canada, all in the same virtual reality environment.
That's cool.
We're all standing in our living rooms, but we all have, the system, and we are able to collaborate on a scenario. So I'm able to build a active attacker scenario, and then we run it over and over again and try it from different people's tactics. So we tried the German guy's way of doing it. We
Absolutely.
tried the US guy's way of doing it. And then we can break down in the AAR phase.
And everyone's observing the other.
Yeah.
Okay,
and we all do the drill together or
Yeah.
the scenario together, and then we play it back. So our system has a method where you can replay what happened, and you see everyone where they moved, you see where they were looking, where their firearms were pointing, you see any trajectories of rounds good guys and bad guys alike.
Right.
And you actually hear what people said during it as well. So you get this kind of full video playback, like we were talking, watch the tape,
the game
tape, right?
Yeah.
And so this idea of sharing the knowledge from, like the airport bombing in Brussels to, whatever attacks could be, that information could be shared, and it's no longer just that one conference that you went to 3 years ago and you barely kind of remember, you know what I mean? It's a library of events that build up our community to the point where we become a really hard target. You know what I mean? Like, imagine going up against somebody that had trained all of these different events, understands all of those possibilities, and has now seen those patterns. Because in BJJ, it's the similar idea, right? You start to see patterns, and you have a stimulus in response to those patterns. So if now your DECAs or anybody who wants to train like this have that stimulus presented to them, and they can now recognize those stimuli, that's a formidable opponent.
Wow. Yeah, that's good. Good people becoming more dangerous.
Yes.
That's what Byron Rogers says. What's really key, what you said? I mean, if anyone has not really leaned into it, learning virtually or digitally is it's a new thing. And our all of us right now, we've all been blown away by seeing that kid who can, do high complex breakdance moves or acrobatic moves or skateboard skills or what. And what they're crediting it to is essentially YouTube. It is literally like, because there's no way to learn it before. You'd have to have someone who physically worked through the mechanics and showed you how. But there's a new part of our brain that just by watching we're able to do. And it's never really been exercised. I don't know the science behind it. I just remember seeing like a really cool article piece on it that said that if a child just watches someone do something, and because they can just kept saying rewind, play, they're priming their mind visually on what needs to happen. And then way faster than ever before, they'll be able to do that.
Yeah, the science of visualization is not to be understated. So myelination is the process you're talking about, where you have two nodes in your brain, you have two ideas, let's say, and you're visualizing an action, whether it's dribbling a basketball and throwing it, whether it's drawing a gun and shooting it, whatever the action is, you're visualizing it over and over and over again, watching it on video or even just picturing it. It's creating a stronger tie between those two nodes. And that's what myelination is. It's creating the sheath around, if you will, the kind of the protective band around those two nodes, that it gets stronger and deeper in order to make it faster and easier to recognize and easier to access that information. Yeah. So there's a book that I really recommend to anybody who wants to increase their mental game. It's called In Pursuit of Excellence. And it's a book I used to prepare for Special Forces selection and the different times I attempted it. And it really highlights how visualization can be used, some tools to use it. And one of my favorite stories in there is about an Olympic champion who broke her leg. She's a skier. She broke her leg something like 8 months before the Olympics. And so she couldn't train, right? She couldn't physically train. And so she was trying to figure out what to do. And I guess she, met the author, and she got it into the visualization side of the house. And all she did for the kind of 7 months of recovery is visualize each part of that course and the slalom and how do I move and what does that feel like? And the more detailed the visualization, the more result, right? So she went really, really detailed, hours a day doing this. And she only healed up something like 3 or 4 weeks before the Olympics to the point where she could get on her skis again. She ends up winning gold. So
okay, that's crazy.
Wow, man.
That's profound. That's amazing. Okay, so that's a perfect story to explain that.
Well, so VR in a way could be explained as visualization enhanced, if you will.
Right.
Yes.
And what I meant by don't take my word for it is, sure, try it yourself and talk to the experts that are using it or have used it and that are interested in testing it further and are starting to push those boundaries. So we see federal police agencies in Canada and the US, military, and if they see validity in it, I mean, they're the top of the top, right?
Sick.
So
yeah, that's
so
amazing.
Before we segue into the next component, which is going to be actually seeing the demonstration of it, Chimera doesn't just do VR. So we want to make sure that everyone knows that you guys actually do everything from teaching advanced gun safety, anyone that wants to get accredited and have their firearms license. Do you want to speak a little bit more about other services that you guys provide as well? Just to
I appreciate that.
Depth?
Yeah, so there's two separate organizations, companies. One is the training company. So Chimera Firearms Training does provide everything from armed guard training to sport shooting to defensive tactics for law enforcement or scenarios and stuff like that for security. And then the other company, Chimera XR, is the one we're talking about with the VR system. And there's some interplay between them in terms of, we provide simulation systems to the training organization as well. But the training company has its own capabilities, and we rely on our military law enforcement security experts that, I've kind of gathered a small group of us over the years that are very passionate about training, very passionate about what does the student need. And so student-driven curriculum is a really big deal for us, right? It's not it's not a matter of what I think is fun or great. It's a matter of what does the student need, and sure, there's a minimum standard for each of our classes, but
that's a Gary V philosophy. The market will tell you what they want.
Yeah,
right? Just listen.
Gary V. Love that guy. Yeah. Amazing.
Yeah, nice, man. So if you also have, I saw some videos on your website of some really cool simulation scenario based where it looks like people are doing drills and they're doing them in what is that called?
Oh, are you talking about the tactical fitness?
Yes.
Yeah. So we ran a couple iterations of this, and I would like to run some more where we tested out. I mean, there's various people who do forms of physical fitness while doing other things. I know you guys met Tony down at the conference there.
Right.
And I mean, the way we looked at it is, again, I want to attack a specific point to evaluate, but introduce a physical stress, which inevitably has a mental and emotional effect, but a physical stressor, and usually target one at a time. So I want to target upper body fatigue. So what happens if your upper body is super tired? How does that affect your ability to shoot, let's say, at distance?
Right.
Or maybe you're very winded, right? You've done some kind of anaerobic workout, and then you go to do shooting. How does that affect your accuracy? So
one-handed, you lose the ability of one arm, right? How do you change your mag, things like that, and handle your breath for that? Yeah, that's amazing. That's amazing.
It really is. We actually, the reason why I find this so amazing is we did something very similar about a week and a half ago. We have a new position we created called Event Protection Specialist. And they're basically, we want this position to be the highest caliber, dealing in event style environments, concert venues and all. And part of the testing that we did, which we're going to be showing on another episode, is that they were put through a very high stress physical circuit.
A gauntlet.
And when that was done, just when they're about to catch their breath, go right into a scenario right now. And we had a scenario put in place that was a difficult scenario. And some people really struggled with it, really struggled to the point where they just wanted to say, all right, I'm done. I'm checking out. You know what I mean? And it was something that I think you should be tested like that. I think everyone should be tested. You know what I mean? A funny story. I was invited by my brother-in-law to his MMA gym and to do Muay Thai. And I went there and, he goes, okay, let's just do some sparring. And I remember I was just tossing guys left and right. And I was like, man, I got this. It's just his name is Andrew. Andrew, can you please give me a challenge? And I was just cocky. And he goes, okay, let's get somebody your own size right now. And then he brought...
So what, these were the 12-year-olds?
Just throwing kids around.
Exactly, the Will Ferrell, right? So he brings in this guy. He brings in this guy right now who's my size.
6'3", by the way.
Yeah. And all I can say, the end scene is I'm on my back, he's on top of me, and I'm just getting shots in the head. Simulated. And that really made me think, man, a perfect example of training. I got fatigued. I couldn't do anything anymore at that point. I was just so tired, and that's when I basically got wasted. But I think the key here is that training is so important. Before we segue again, I want to ask you a question regarding training and mindset. Okay? You train a lot of entities. You train law enforcement. You train security agencies. You train police. You train all that, Army and all. What do you see as the general common thread for people to be successful in training to get the positive outcome using them? What would you say that element is in your experience?
Mindset specific?
Mindset specific, yeah. Okay. What do they need to do to get there? Because you see it all the time.
Yeah, for sure. That's an excellent question. I think being willing to explore new ideas, even if they're uncomfortable, is probably the single biggest indicator of growth. And everyone's seen, as you're just explaining, how pressing yourself to your limit has I would say an exponential effect if you do this consistently to your personal growth in various areas. So it's the students that kind of hold back or don't really want to put themselves out there, have maybe too much pride, too much ego. They put a limit on themselves in some way. They think I'm not good enough for that, or it's not, it's not for me. And they put some kind of reason in their head, some kind of doubt.
They discredit the content, right?
They find a reason.
Yeah, they find a reason.
They find something about it that says, I don't have to. It's not a mandatory thing for me. That's cool. I don't have to. Right.
Right.
A good example of someone who did push themselves in this way was, I have one of our armed security clients presented me with a candidate for their armed security course, a female who'd only ever worked in an office before. She had no security experience. She had no fighting experience. She had never been in a fight. She had never been under pressure. And so I asked her, I'm like, why do you want to do this? Like, this is a completely different risk profile, a whole different world. And she said, I want to push myself to do something different and become a better version of myself. And I said, okay, well, that's excellent. We're going to do that. And she really had to push, right? Like, she really had to step outside of her comfort zone, raise her voice, even something as simple as raising their voice when needed, on command, if you will, on their own kind of volition, and it being non-emotional, right?
Yes.
That's a difficult thing for some people.
Yeah.
A non-emotional raising of their voice and volume in order to get someone to comply so they don't have to go hands-on. Is an example of that, where they have to step outside of their comfort zone. They have to feel silly for a second, maybe look silly for a second, in order to create that space and time, in order to, achieve a safer outcome.
Okay. That's nice, man.
Amazing. Did she do well?
She did inevitably, yes. She did inevitably do well. It took some time. She needed to put a lot of time in, and she did.
Nice.
Right? And that was the true test of it is, you didn't make it through this time.
That's
Are you
right.
going to try again? Yeah, I'm going to try again. Okay, we'll see you next time.
I love it, though.
She came back.
Yeah,
The
it's
openness
awesome,
off the top, you said the openness to embrace new ideas and to not just, scoff at it. That is amazing. I mean, if you stay there, I love meeting someone who's senior and they're still curious. They're still trying to learn. They say over and over, as much as I know, as much as I realize I don't know. And that's why it's like, you're never going to arrive, and your appetite will never be full if you're in the right lane. So,
Right.
yeah.
So how do we find you? How do we find Chimera Group?
Yeah, so at Chimera Firearms on Instagram, chimerafirearms.com is our website. It is being updated. And for the simulation side of the house, at Chimera XR, XR meaning extended reality. So we don't limit ourselves to just one kind of simulation. We have these different avenues that we're working on. So at Chimera XR or chimeraxr.com.
Yeah,
Okay.
and Chimera spelled for those listening and driving at the same
It's
time.
like
Chimera.
Yes.
Yes.
And we will also be featuring Chimera on our website as well as a portal to get to you. And there's a lot of cool things that are coming, man. A lot of cool things.
Thank you, guys.
Now, there is a chatter happening outside, a little bit to my
Can hear it.
unliking. It's a little bit too loud. And this is our group. So before we go in there now and just expose them,
Right.
Tell us what they're going to go through.
Sure. So we are going to set up a few different drills that illustrate what our system can do, our virtual reality system, which is called Mythos, the Mythos Project.
Ooh, I love the name.
Thank you. So sticking with the Greek mythology,
Yes.
the three-headed beast being the mental, physical, and emotional side of training. The Project Mythos to me is, how do we take something that seems like magic and make it real, right? So I think there's a quote, I can't remember who said it, but technology at a certain point is, you can't differentiate it from magic. If it's at a certain stage,
Right.
it seems like magic, right?
That's Kanye. That's Kanye.
No, it's somebody else, but I can't remember who.
That's
so
awesome,
they're
though.
going to experience hopefully something akin to not magic, but something akin to a virtual reality scenario involving maybe a vehicle, shooting in and around a vehicle, reacting to an active attacker scenario in a supermarket or a restaurant. And then maybe doing some things in a low light or no light context. So handheld flashlight work with identifying what are threats, what are not threats, while maintaining fundamentals of safety and marksmanship at the same time. Which, I don't have any expectations going into this. I just want people to see what's possible.
Okay.
And also let the ideas run rampant, because this is part of the journey. As you said, you never arrive.
Right.
And so part of the journey to me is, what happens when you guys put the headsets on and you have all the experience you do, and then the ideas start bubbling like, oh, well, if we could do that,
Right.
what else could we do? And could we do this?
Yes.
And while they have their headsets on, we are going to have a monitor screen to see exactly what they're seeing, and we will also have cameras on them so you can see their reactions.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Taylor, thank you so much for being part of the show. What I can tell you and everyone listening right now is you have not heard the last of Taylor. And what we're going to be looking at doing, we are obviously as an entity looking at pushing the bar. And I'm honestly thrilled to have met you.
Yeah, this is exciting.
Yeah, you're a solid guy, man. I love what you do. I love what you stand for. I love your thinking and its training philosophies. And yeah, man, thank you so much for coming down today.
Thank you so much for having me, guys. We're so excited.
All right, let's do it.
Thank you.
All right,
let's
go.
head out.
Let's do it.
This podcast is brought to you by Executive Protection Lifestyle Canada. Make sure to drop by next week and don't forget to subscribe.